Hey
Croquet.
Joe, how you doing?
Man, looking sharp.
Yeah, I got a haircut. People were starting to hand me change
Wait.
as I walked down the street, so I got a haircut and a beard trim.
Mm. So, more important things.
And
After you got your haircut, did your daughter still recognize
yeah,
you?
of course, yes, yeah. She,
I see. All this election stuff has got you to clean up the stand in
dude,
line.
there's so much that has
They
happened
wouldn't
since we
let you
talked.
vote. They're like, wait a minute, you're not from here. You're Middle Eastern.
Yeah, they wouldn't let me vote. I had to show ID. Well, we have to show ID. But in the world, we've got an American Pope now as well. So like the world has
I
changed.
know. That makes me laugh.
First American Pope.
I do like that. I do like that all the news that's coming out is we have a first American Pope, but he's lived in Peru for many years. I mean, the first thing they have to do is justify it because why it's funny is the U.S. is known for being Protestant. It's the home of all the Protestant religions. So all these brand new religions, and now they have an American leading this. Not they say 2,000, but really it's like 1,700-year-old established
Yeah, that's like when we get a gold
religion.
medal in the Olympics and we say it's Australian gold medal, and it's like a Russian who's been here for 2 years training. We've given him citizenship as part of a deal, and now Australia's getting gold medals.
That's right. All right. Welcome to the conversation where we unpack the wild, interconnected chaos shaping the world, including the population's decline and all the reasons for it. Here, your co hosts, Joe Edgar and Ethan Kruk. And today's topic, although we never did confirm, but today's topic is defunding education. Higher education, that is. We'll start with
I,
one.
I would I would like to defund
But
both.
that's what I'm saying. We better do one at a time before Ethan gets his way. Monday marks a big event. Monday is when all of these people who got the COVID relief will now be put on notice. Apparently, of the 43 million student loan borrowers. So this kind of tags on to our last episode's conversation. Those who have borrowed money under student loans, the 5 million of them are in arrears and are going to be getting notices. And then there is quotes that millions are on the cusp of being in arrears. I don't know exactly what that means, but they must know that nobody has made any payment. So at least 5 million have not made a payment since there was the original COVID relief. So there's a lot of student debt about to come due. Biden administration was trying to relieve $9 billion of debt. But just to give you a sense, 9 billion and how much is outstanding, it's like almost 1.7 trillion in outstanding debt. So 9 billion, even though so many were kind of hoping to get relief, it, you need a lottery ticket just to get it too. Student debt is unique and compared to any other debt that you have. So you can have a foreclosure. If you file foreclosure, any commercial loan can be forgiven. It can be private loans to be forgiven, but student debt is government debt. And so it cannot be forgiven, and your wages can be garnished. Even your tax returns, if you have any check coming back for you, it can be taken. So student debt is pretty serious. There's lots of debate now where people say on both sides. One is saying, you took out the debt, you owe it. And it is true. You did take out a debt and you owe it. And the Obama administration, the way they would facilitate issuing student debt, they would run it through private loan brokers. And so the brokers would put together, so they did all the underwriting. And they would also make a cut. So they'd make a VIG on the loan. But they did all the underwriting. And so I think, I couldn't really find any good data to say when what is getting paid back. So we don't really know if the underwriting was great. So we don't know. It could have been just as bad. At the time, the administration really pushed out that it was bad because they considered it waste. And
I
so
think
they estimated they were going to cut out about $4 to $6 billion a year just in cutting out the middleman. So then in the Obama administration, it all went public.
I imagine that because of there's so many different types of loan deferment types for the different like different loan, like different industries and then different, like with the SMART grant, I think it was an education grant. If you taught in a certain lower demographic area, you could have deferment, but even loan forgiveness in some cases. So I think because of probably the variety of the different deferments and types of loans, that's probably what complicated things and why it's probably hard to get that data.
Well, I know where I grew up, if you would go there and teach for 5 years, they would forgive at least $50,000 worth of your student debt. And almost nobody can make it 5 years.
Yeah.
So that tells you a little bit about Chiloquin, Oregon. Anyone who's listening from Chiloquin. And then I know in El Paso, they have a similar program. So there are a few places, but it's not that they're doing loan forgiveness. It's that the community in general. So a lot of places like doctors, if you take on student debt to become a doctor and they have a need for doctors or nurses, then they say, come stay for 3 to 5 years and then we'll pay off your debt. Let's step back to what's going on with Harvard. Because I think in this conversation, we're going to get back down to AI and productivity, but really I want to cover Harvard and what's going on in Harvard. I can't stand Harvard. This is what's frustrating, is I don't like an institution that I feel is so wrong, but now they're standing up and they look like the good guys, and I'm like, they are right. So it frustrates me to be in their corner saying, no, their arguments are definitely right. The Foundation for Individual Rights FIRE, they rank Harvard at the bottom constantly. Harvard is the worst for freedom of speech. If you even look conservative, they're going to ban you. I mean, there are teachers who go out and assist in protesting and getting people off campus. So they're the worst violators for having really a well-rounded campus. But the White House sent out this letter. They sent it to a few schools, but Columbia ended up bowing to all of the concessions. The concessions are pretty crazy. They include, there's no masks, which is a strange one, right? No masks, adoption of formal definition of anti-Semitism. They want disciplinary processes redefined. And then they want, the strangest one is academic receivership for Middle Eastern studies, which means the White House is going to put together a group who would review the actual stuff being taught, which is mind-boggling that the state is now going to get involved. And then the last one is the termination of the University Judicial Board. So if you've ever got a parking ticket, you've tried to dispute it, you end up at the university's Judicial Board. And that is the very thing that they're saying we're going to take over, and the White House will implement their own group. And most of this, of course, is for Mohsin Mahdi, the 34-year-old from Colombia, who is a pro-Palestinian protester, nonviolent, but a protester nonetheless. And so he was arrested, and finally a judge released him, but his case is still ongoing. And so this is a pretty big matter where they want to deport him. He's here. He's even got a little family going while he goes to school in Columbia. Columbia bowed. But now Harvard is now standing up and going to, what's weird is it's going to make Harvard more liberal. It's making Harvard, this is the best marketing Harvard could ever ask for. Now they have $50 billion in their coffers, in their wealth fund. But you can't use all of it because a lot of it, like if I donate money, whatever specific thing you donate the money for is where it goes. So Harvard can't actually use all the money just for operating costs. Now, what's weird is when I was younger, where I grew up, if you go to school, if you get a bachelor's degree, you'll make more. If you only get a high school degree, you'll get less. We were a very poor community in Southern Oregon. But you never know where you go to school matters. And I didn't really understand that till later after I went to school. And so going to Harvard is, whether the education, it's debatable whether the education is different from some state school in Texas versus Harvard. Is the education actually different? It's probably hard to say, but Harvard, you do have more resources. So this is a place that does recruit some of the smartest people in the country. But it makes me wonder, I mean, it does bring up the debate that now, so first Trump tried to withhold money. And this means the president is literally trying to control the purse. Congress has rights to the purse. And so first that was the dispute. And now Harvard's fighting back saying it's abuse of powers. But second, it's now infringement upon their First Amendment right. And so freedom of speech, because they want to control what's literally being taught. That's changing quite a few things, putting pressure on Harvard. And now there are lots of Trumpers saying, like, yes, this is what I voted for. I want the end of Harvard. I want the end of the state funding its private education. I know you're supportive of this, so I'd love to hear. Give me a
It's
little
hard to
love.
believe, like, you've got trade schools are going to be big, but I think you're going to have service schools. I don't know what that means, but, you're going to have a lot of schools popping up teaching people how to make humans feel good, and what types of service and interactions they can provide.
Well, that's a fair argument. Funding the educational institution, higher education, is crowding out the private market. So if we didn't have any government funding going on, then it means that businesses and organizations would be driving more education. They'd have direct to jobs. Very similar, I know in Australia, you do college, then university. Here we don't, we just go in. So it'd be more driven. You probably have more trade schools. You probably have more focused. I just read an article in Wall Street Journal yesterday about how high schoolers in their junior year are getting offers for $75,000 if they get their welding certificate. So that would bode towards that.
I think trades and surfaces are going to be worth more than degrees very soon. And I think that's part of the problem is people are still trying to fix solutions to problems that won't exist soon. And they're ignoring problems that do exist. I know you don't want to talk about it yet, but even the degrees, there's a lot of question now, even in the last 5 years of degrees, especially during COVID, where a lot of people are doing studies online. How much of that study was actually done by the people and how much of it was done by AI or out-serviced agents? Like there's a lot of, and even now, like I don't know if there's a way for them to keep track of who is using AI to complete assignments in class or even, build things for their practical assignments and such. Like, yeah, it is. I don't know.
This podcast is made by AI right now.
Yeah. So I don't mean to sidetrack it a bit, but I guess what I'm saying is I feel like there's a bunch of people driving a bunch of different vehicles right now, and these vehicles were based on models that existed a few years ago at the youngest. And like I've talked about before, people that are entering a degree right now, by the time they finish school in that particular industry or field for that degree, whatever jobs they thought they were going to be applying for won't exist. Then they'll have to, not that the industry won't exist, but the jobs will be different because of the technologies they'll apply. So the problem is like everyone else, we're all hyper-focused on, because we're all achieving so much progress right now, like that things are happening at breakneck speeds across every industry. Everyone's got this motivation right now and want to make changes and prepare for what's coming. And it's hard to see what's happening across field. That's why we've got this Event Horizon stuff coming, right? And because we've got all these people driving these old vehicles, thinking that they're going to finish their vehicle and it's going to mean something. And you've got people, making vehicles that drive themselves that are going to change everything. I see a bunch of vehicles crashing.
So really, it's like the government shouldn't be funding this because basically they're supporting the status quo. And
I think the government,
if they weren't supporting the status quo, then this education would be forced to change and adapt to the environment. Where now we have YouTube and we have things where people can basically get an education for free. I mean, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, education is going to change so dramatically, and the industries that are valuable are going to change. So service industries will be will be more valuable. I mean, you're going to start paying people to go for a walk with you at some point in your day, and you'll pay them cash money to do it because mostly everything you're going to be doing, or a lot of people are going to be doing, is going to be online or from their phone. And so people are actually going to pay for surface, like human services. You can see it happening already now in the aged care sector.
Like hire someone to take you for a walk.
Yes. You can see it happening in Australia. One of the biggest growing industries, you can look this up, is caring for elderly people and caring for retirees. And and it's not just like caring for people with disabilities. It's like helping them use their internet, helping them keep in contact with their friends, helping them, go shopping and bring the groceries home safely and getting around on public transport. And these skills and services are becoming very high demand. Yeah. So, so I think we'll see, like, you've got trade schools are going to be big, but I think you're going to have service schools. I don't know what that means, but, you're going to have a lot of schools popping up teaching people how to make humans feel good, and what types of service and interactions they can provide. Because a lot of these older jobs are going to be replaced. I know people are still trying to ignore it, I think, but just in the last week, I've kind of, dabbled a little bit more in AI myself, and there's so many business opportunities just locally to me that there's virtually there's no competition yet for systems that can easily be implemented. You're going to see a lot more entrepreneurs coming out of high school, instead of going to college. I think that's where the value is. The value should be taught in business. The business schools should be where people are going to learn how to create businesses, manage businesses, and use and implement
But
technologies.
isn't that what's happening now?
Yeah, it is, but this is what's happening too. I'm saying I think people will get more value. I know there's a brand issue, there's a trust issue with people on YouTube, right? But when they sort that out, when a YouTuber comes out with a trusted brand, they're going to be the first billionaire without any team. They're going to use a completely automated SaaS model. So they're going to have agent sales people, marketing people, everything else. And they're going to build a trusted brand that will teach people anything you could learn at university and do it, at a fraction of the cost.
Well, they have a couple of those, like
Yeah.
Udemy is a company
Yeah.
that's doing it.
Yeah.
And then they have that guy from Harvard who started his own YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Basically has a big following. And
Tony Robbins is
great
about to
math stuff. I mean,
Tony Robbins is about to launch something similar to this month. I think it's
make you feel good with Tony Robbins.
no, he's doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, which is basically helping.
Is that the master class?
Yeah, but it's teaching people that they can create these businesses instead of going to get a job. Whatever job you think, whatever skills you think to get.
But hasn't that always been the case? I mean, can't you always?
No. Big difference
something?
now is technology.
No.
Now with AI as coaches, as assistants, and then with certain applications now, it's easy to code. So the technological side is getting. You don't need a team anymore to found something. You don't need a team anymore.
So let me throw some data right now. The average student debt on a bachelor's degree, you owe about $40,000. That's how much people are borrowing. Now, if you go to college, you make on average about $77,000. If you don't go to college, you make on average $46,000 with just a high school degree. Then your lifetime earning power is about $1 million difference.
Yep.
And then the annual federal budget is about $200 billion. It was actually $241 billion, so they did cut it slightly. And that includes Pell Grants and student loans that are issued. So that's the federal government, basically what they're putting out. Now, the previous generation did benefit slightly because they had lower interest rates. And now those who are coming out of the COVID era are stuck with seeing 6 and 7% interest rates, which they're barely covering that. So they're seeing their balance grow as they're not making the basic interest payment. So it is increasing. But nonetheless, I know Mark Twain has this quote I like to use: "Don't let school get in the way of your education." Right?
Yes.
So I know I'm saying that wrong, but credit Mark Twain for sparking the mental memory. That's all I can remember of it. But the whole point is like, okay, well, there is this education status. You almost have to have the badge. And this is, if you go to Harvard, you get the Harvard badge. If you go to one of the Ivy Leagues, you get the Ivy League badge. So there's Harvard. If it's business school, you're talking about Booth and Wharton, Harvard, Stanford. These are typically your top 4. And then you're in the top 10, same kind of thing. And then you break down to now you're into the next 20 section. And then you go down from there. And each one of those can directly relate to the salary of what you're going to earn as you get out of there. So that would be a school, right? You got to go and earn this badge. What would replace it? Because this is a way, they recruit out of high schools. They try to find the smartest and brightest. I know, did you tell me one time, your mom had you tested and you were high IQ?
No. So there's in our public school systems, there are certain areas where they'll have an academic program in some of the state schools. So it's still a public school, but it might only, and there's some that are arts and performance based as well, right? So I have a niece right now who's going to a school, and it's a state school, but it's a big one. They have a sporting program, so you can get scholarships for sporting, and it's a really good sporting program. They have an arts and a performing arts program. She's in there for singing.
And Australians call it sport and maths.
Yeah. And she's in the academic program there as well. And it's a different side of school. So they take all their classes with an advanced group, and then all of their electives and
Gotcha.
generals they'll do with, actually, no, the generals they do with that specific group too. But then they fit it in a schedule that they can.
So are they weeding out the smart kids or weeding down the dumb kids?
Well, so I still think all education is just placeholding and babysitting right now. The problem is even with how you're explaining the structure. And when I'm talking about business schools, I'm not talking about traditional business schools. I think anything that's on a model that's older than a year.
So more like an entrepreneur classes,
I think
like
I think entrepreneurs
versus
is about to blow
business.
up, because in the past it cost so much money even to be an entrepreneur and start up. And now there's tools that are becoming available that are so cheap, and what they can do is not funny. And some are actually free. Like you can actually, some of these things are free, and
you're talking about potential of these AI agents where you could
Yes.
actually stand up something. We have a guy, I think in about 2 weeks, we're going to bring him on and really break down blockchain, crypto, and talk about some of the AI agents. But yeah, you could stand up like an entire employee base without actually having employees.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is about the business schools, like what I'm saying is you talk about going to school to get an education. Most of them seem dodgy, but a lot of the YouTube videos that are selling courses on how to start your own business, they're actually, a lot of them are legitimate. They just have a branding problem. And a lot of people that buy them, they think that they just have to buy it and they're automatically going to make money. They don't realize there's still work involved, right? But some of these people are teaching the core concepts of business, and they're teaching things that you would take years to learn at a traditional school. And people are able to not only learn it, get experience as they apply it, making these businesses and making money. And I think there's going to be a lot more
Now,
people doing that. Sorry?
Are you implying that, because they could teach them faster and get to it easier, that they are wasting in an education and pushing?
That's what I'm implying. I'm saying anyone who's,
or just wasting.
I'm saying the government's wasting money right now. I'm saying individuals are wasting money right now on getting traditional forms of education. I'm saying you can educate yourself better and faster using online and new technologies. And the problem is the trust issue. And like you're saying, like, if there was a standard that you could apply to some of these independent coaches or business mentors or business trainers, then that would definitely add value to you. Saying have a badge or something. You could possibly get certified with certain things. But even still, the proof's going to be in the pudding now. Now, like in the past, it was going to take you 6 months to come up with a prototype or a program or whatever.
It just breaks society down.
Yeah, I think it's happening.
I mean, no matter what. Yeah, but there's smarter people and there's less smarter people. Always.
Apparently, because of AI now, we've got a lot of smart people saying that soon most humans won't be able to pass a Turing test.
Now you're saying that just because they're handicapping themselves?
Yes,
because
people
are using
are
AI
not being able. People will not be able to critically think soon.
Fair.
People will not be able to critically think soon, and they will have to rely on the AI to think for themselves.
We still have the smarter people in a society, and we have those that are, well, less smart, and some who are more talented in other traits. Okay, for example, I have done work with a friend of mine, very smart scientist, could not swing a hammer. To save his life, he could not pound on a hammer.
The top, right?
But then I went and saw, exactly, it was awful. It was awful. Could not help at all. And I wasn't even he was just pulling boards. And this is when I was younger. But I was like, what is going on over here? But could I sit through his lab and do these experiments? No, the patience that it takes to do each one is like, I can't do it. So in this regard, I'd be one of the dumb ones. And he's one of the smart ones. And this is what these top universities do. They try to channel. So there's these arguments against them where, okay, government money, it automatically inflates tuition. We have seen tuition go up higher than inflation. So it is doing that. It allows this administrative bloat. And so if you see from 1990 to now, there are 60% more administrative staff in the universities. And then it could create a disparity because those who take on student debt or can afford tuition, it would only be the wealthier ones. And so if you're actually really poor, you can't go to school anyways because you just can't afford to go to these universities, or if you got into one. So now, granted, there are some scholarships to try to read through that, but in general, that would be the argument for it. So then on the other side, though, you have really how much technology is being produced in these universities. And the universities are kind of this magnetic spot to try to recruit our smartest and brightest people. And then they fund it through research. And so if we go through all the technologies that have been created by university systems, I want to start with saying COVID, but I didn't. But that's just to rustle your feathers. But, it's things. It's such as the internet, GPS, Wi-Fi, lithium ion, MP3 players, the new CRISPR editing. I mean, almost every major technology you can think of was done through a government funding education. So if we were to stop funding education, yes, it would create this level playing field of sorts where there'd be more trade schools. Universities would still exist, but fewer of them. They could not afford to stand, but they would not get near the money. And so they'd be limited to grants to really do the research, which happens now. They get private grants to do research for them. But they'd be biased. Like University of Texas gets oil exploration type grants where they will study different things to find more oil. So it would still exist, but on a minor level. But the other thing it would do is for the U.S., our institutions, the U.S. is the number one place to get an education in the world. I agree that there's some debate on other places you can get a solid education. I mean, Oxford and some others. But the U.S. in general is the top place to get an education. And so this would hurt us as well, because now if you were to stop this funding, you would flatten the education base, which means other countries could actually provide a better education. For example, China, who is willing to prop up and pay for research. So it really comes down to the school and the access to research power that they have in developing some of these. So it's two things. One, you got to have an institution that attracts the smartest and brightest. I just having a conversation today is also the day Russia is celebrating. Apparently, Trump, we're also in the U.S. wanting to celebrate it as well. We're thinking about the World War II and how we created the atomic bomb. I mean, that was created through public finance money. But on top of that, we're a country of migrants where we did recruit a whole bunch of migrants to allow the freedom of thought. And in doing so, we were able to really pull together a whole bunch of minds to build something. I mean, can you imagine if the Germans or the Russians were the first ones to get the bomb? It would have changed the world entirely. And so the government funding a lot of this research.
Have you heard of Project Paperclip? Because I'm gonna kind of give you an opposite to what you're saying. Yeah,
you haven't been yelling enough, so I'm trying to
This is the conspiracy part coming. So
okay, here it goes.
Have you heard of Project Paperclip, or am I talking jargon to you?
No.
Okay, so Project Paperclip was when, near the end of the war, when the Americans seized power of the German assets.
World War II.
Yeah, World War II. They took all of the German advanced science teams. Okay, and that group of, I think it was I forget the actual numbers. You can look it up. It's 200 or 2,000 scientists. I think it's 2,000 scientists, German scientists. Yeah. They become NASA. That group becomes what you have now as NASA.
Right. Gave them all citizenship, brought over their families, protected them.
And many of them were involved with creating the bomb.
Yep.
So America didn't necessarily create it. They probably stole a lot of information when they captured Germany.
Immigrants.
And they were lucky to beat Germany and create it. Yeah. So I do see the narrative that you're saying, and how an institution that has been sanctioned and peer reviewed, all those kind of things. I
just mean the private market. It's hard to make that happen naturally.
Sure.
So the government stepping in for things like this to say, okay, I'm going to fund education. I'm going to fund research because I'm going to create a gravitational force for the smartest and brightest people to come. And then from there, we're going to create some of the biggest technologies in the world. Because on your side, I know you're about to scream at me and say, well, why is John the plumber having to pay this bum's debt to go to college because he's going to make more, right? And I get it. But at the same time, John the plumber is now using GPS. He's using he actually is more productive and able to do so much more because of these technologies. So even though he is having to pay a tax for government funded, even down to student loan, and I'm not saying to pay off student loan debt, but it is, that we're backstopped by the 1.7 trillion is backstopped by the American taxpayer. So, but it is needed because all of those technologies he ends up benefiting from.
Have you heard of the theory that if the Civil War in America had have lasted another couple of decades, the North or the South would have nuked each other?
No.
So because like we're talking about the innovation that happens during wartime, especially like a big war and a big long extended war, the winner will become down to technology. And so the most technological advances come through massive war or crisis associated with war. And so, some top thinkers believe that before the Civil War, the tools were very primitive. At the end of the Civil War, they were very advanced. And technology just kind of just stopped and paused for a bit until the Great Wars. And in those Great Wars, they didn't last very long, but each period of Great War, you have, machines being created, robots, all the way to nuclear energy, right? And then we paused again. So I actually think that governments pause us from innovation.
They went from musket to like grenades, right?
I think that governments actually pause us from innovation. I think government has too much control. I think these institutions actually stifle education and innovation. And I think the government is always competing with itself.
The crowding out effect.
Yeah, and the government's always competing with itself because it's trying to convince its citizens that it's all about freedom. This is especially America as an example. The government in America is confused because it's always trying to convince itself that it's about freedom, when really every government is about control. Every government's about control, so you can have these social agreements, right? You can have these social agreements like money, and then you can start organizing and creating institutions like universities.
Really, you're saying this technology advancement comes, which is almost productivity. I find it far-fetched to think in Civil War we would have come up with a nuke, but they were probably the equivalent of the nuke, the rock blaster.
Well, so look at
or something along these lines.
Look at what's. So I know you think that's laughable, but if I'll give you an example, like the current timeline of how technology is evolving. 100 years ago we got the light bulb. When did we get the light bulb?
Right.
And there wasn't much of a difference between technology in that time, right? And so until we invented the light bulb, every best thinker in the world, every top expert in the world would tell you the innovations that's happened this last 100 years is not possible.
Right. I mean, you're basically saying big innovation comes and then many things change, like from the horse and buggy to the automobile.
Yeah, and I'm saying big innovation is mostly stifled by government agreements to all control and respect each other's control. And I think wartime that supersedes that.
In war, I mean, why do you think wartime we end up advancing so much in
because it supersedes
technology? Don't you think it's because the government is so focused that they're willing to fund it? I mean,
what happens in wartime? People's rights are revoked, pretty much. For example, like if you institute martial law, right? It's just one example.
Right. Ukraine has this martial law.
They can government can come seize your assets if they need it to build weapons. So there's lots of different war.
But isn't that even more to the point that the government being able to have a single-minded focus can actually put a lot towards research? So it only proved that having an institute.
Yeah, but the government's focus is not to generally liberate its own people. That's what I'm saying. I think the government's focus. Focus is to capture its own people and make them think that they're free.
So you talked about last time about the advancements in AI and what it would do. All right. You brought this up earlier, like the way we'll be able to have different things. And to be clear, when we say AI, I'm more of
even just automated processes.
AI is not actually AI.
Even just automated processes, right. Joe. But learning language models are different, but automated processes is just one step that's going to change everything.
So to be clear, what Ethan is talking about, LLM models are a way to take in mostly the English language, but now they translate into others. But it's really a way to take human language and talk to computers. You used to need a programmer. Your programmer would have to program in all these languages. And to have it speak our language is an LLM model. And the way they do that is they basically scour the internet for every type of conversation you've ever had. So every article, every email, any way you've ever communicated with each other. And then they translate that. So there is a group out of MIT who are now saying, okay, well, because AI means it's actually being creative. It's creating something on its own. It's not just following through on a process. It's being creative. And so the MIT group has put out a paper that says by 2026, it's possible we could run out of text to be training our LLM models. And so now we're limited on two fronts.
Mhm.
We're either use less of our text data, but it would require by far more processing power. And what that means is you have to say, okay, well, let's break down every single phrase and really teach it what all of this means. And then, but it's going to require substantial more processing power. And this is an important point I want to bring up here in a minute. We're going to dive into. But then the other one is let's just throw all the textual stuff at it. And it's like learning and cranking it through, but we're going to be out of information. So really this huge grandiose productivity. And for the US to calculate productivity, you're literally looking at like, what's your GDP and how many humans are working at how many hours, and that's your productivity. And so as we know, population's going down. So I've been pushing the argument that we're going to need more people in order to balance that. And Ethan's on the side says we don't need more, in the Larry Fink from BlackRock, who feels that we don't need it because we'll be able to have this AI. But we are already, MIT is saying there's going to be a plateau problem. It's already happening now. And so it comes down to this processing power. So I want to leave that down because the processing power is one that's really important, which is electricity.
Which is going to be solved soon too. I think it was only last month that we got the first Google chip, which is a set of qubits that work together as a quantum processor. So it's not, when I went to school, every teacher used to like to tell the story about how big the computer was when they were my age. And the computer was the size of one of the school buildings, right? And right now, that same computer wouldn't be possible of doing what my phone computer can do. And so I don't know. I'm sure we'll see it in our lifetime. A Google
You
processor.
still got this briefcase phone.
We'll see it in our lifetime for sure. We'll see a quantum computer inside a mobile phone, and that will change everything.
And just to be clear for everyone so they understand what quantum means, binary. So most computers run on ones and zeros. They're binary. So you're on, off, on, off. And what quantum is it allows you to have a spectrum of on and offs. And so now in between a 1 and a 0, you could have infinity levels of computing power that are quasi on, quasi off. And so that's what quantum is it opens up the floodgates to an infinite amount of computing power. Google came close. There's a few that have said, yeah, we've done it. We've come close, but they balance it because it does take a lot of electricity and particular chips. And so that's what Ethan's saying. Is
that's the first
they have
computer
these chips coming out.
Enigma, like how long did it take him to build? And, it wouldn't even be considered.
You're saying in 10 years, the whole binary process will be obsolete. It'll be like, remember when we used to have ones and zeros to turn on, like hexadecimal?
I'm saying, just like we were on a technology curve, there's going to be a productivity curve at some point too, because manufacturing, energy, all these things will become cheaper, and the access to. So, do you know anything about 3D printers? I only just started looking at 3D printers. Have you looked at 3D printers?
So my son goes to school in what is it? Colorado School of Mines. It's like an engineering school.
Yep.
And when they did the training for the school, so it's not very big. There's like 5,000 students. And I went there in the opening ceremony that the provost or the dean or whatever does for everybody. There's like 1,000 students, new freshmen. And this is when I was like, yep, he's at home here. But he's like, no, you cannot bring your 3D printer. We have lots of them. Please just use what's in the lab. Second, he's like, we have sporting events. D&D will be held at the end of every sport. Like, oh my goodness, this is his place. He's home. He's home.
In the last 6 months, I've needed to get surf fins, and they're not cheap, like surfboard fins, right? And they're not cheap.
Yeah.
And so, just out of curiosity,
this is because you're like swimming like a shark, and you're trying to scare people around the reef.
I live on the beach, and so there's a surfing community. So, I tend to get some surfboards every now and then, but I need to get fins for them.
Ethan does not surf, to be clear, everybody. This is how he picks up women.
I take the surfboard.
This is him carrying a surfboard.
I take it to the beach.
He's got like
I take it to the beach and make it look like I'm surfing.
Yeah.
So, but it's expensive to even to do that. So,
This also explains why Ethan has a daughter. Also, why he has a puppy. It just depends on the day and who he's trying to pick up.
True. So the fins are made of fiberglass, so they're not good for the environment, and they're also dangerous. You can get cut up by them, right? And so just out of curiosity, I mean, I'm sick aside of paying for them. They're too expensive. So I'm like, I've always wanted to justify buying a 3D printer. So I'm like, can I 3D print a surf fin? Like, yes. All right. Well, what printer do I need to do it? Right. And so now I'm going to start a surf fin company, right? Because there's a demand and it's an eco-friendly, like I can create recyclable surfboard fins. I can create a system where people can recycle it and I can incentivize that as well. So I can create a closed loop surfing economy here. So it's good for the environment. No more microplastics in the water. Safe and friendly for...
This does sound like a win-win, because if someone's out there surfing and your fins are cheaply made so they break even, then you can be like, oh, it's recycling. It's going back to the...
Yeah, you could also... I don't even know the business model yet, but you could put people on a program where you're replying or replenishing their fins monthly. You can do this, or especially with surf schools, stuff like that. I just gave everyone my business plan.
Right.
But anyway, no, what I'm saying is like, there's going to be more opportunities realized like that very soon by a lot of people. And those kind of opportunities are a lot simpler and easier and faster. And, they provide that you're going to have all the scholarships and fun, sponsorships and grants attached to that as well, right?
You're spot on there that, all right, we have a technology that now increases productivity. You can make a lot more with less time. So here we are increasing productivity. We're increasing GDP. But then in order to do it takes more electricity. And so you just gave a great example of the same thing.
No, sorry, this is where you're wrong too. This is better for the environment all the way around. Like, go look up how they make surf fins. They make them out of fiberglass. They use power tools. They have to shape it, sand it, layer upon layer, glues, heats. It's an all-day. It's an all-day process.
A 3D printer takes a lot of energy.
Not as much as all of these.
We have two of them that my son runs. So it's like, turn that thing off.
I don't know if you've worked in a workshop, Joe, but like you could go Google this. How much power would be required to make a fiberglass fin, and how much power would be required to make a 3D printed fin? And I'm telling you, the 3D printed fin is going to be. It's not even going to compare, bro. Like, it's going to be way less power.
I question it, but I'll take it. Yep. But let's dive. Well, we do know that AI is not going to go without more power. It must have more compute power.
When everyone's
in the US right now, I broke it down. We're using about 200 terawatt hours that are focused right now, estimated to be focused just on data centers running AI tools right now, which represents about 5% of the US's total capacity. By end of 2025, they estimate that the demand for AI will be between 15 to 17% at about 290 to 360 terawatt hours, which is pretty big growth. So there's no way
there will be
that we can make enough energy to service AI's growth to meet the productivity problem.
I think there's opportunities that you don't see. There's one of the things that AI is going to do, it's going to declutter administrative costs. It's going to declutter administrative processing power. For example, internal messaging, internal faxing, printing, all these different things. A lot of what you're saying, that new energy consumption, even if it is AI taking a lot more energy, there's going to be other systems that will use less energy because they'll be outdated, limited, and not efficient.
Well, yeah, I can see what you're saying, but that is the process. So, for example, if you have a manufacturing plant that, let's say, is making, let's not use surfing fins because I don't know about it. Let's just call them widgets. They're making widgets. And right now there's a guy who has to use like this chainsaw and chop the chainsaw and then bring down the hatch and run the vacuum and send it on the tube. And he has to do all that. And so you're saying like, all right, well, because what he's cutting is like twice the size that is needed, that's a waste of energy. He's driving to run the vacuum constantly, so that's a waste of energy. But if AI was running, they would only cut the maximum or minimum amount that needs cut, and they would run the equipment so efficient that it would cut down on the energy demand being produced. Is that right?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying even a business that produces anything, right? A lot of the business cost and demand and time is administration and processes and even service industry.
Yeah,
Like,
but
so like
most of us don't take any electricity,
taking
like
in,
carrying papers around and saying,
take an
boss man, sign this. Like, what does that take?
take it like, so I'll use my dad as an example. He used to inspect houses. He's semi-retired now, so he doesn't so much anymore. But
Pop,
yeah,
right? Pop now.
He's a house inspector, right? And when he saves a couple of jobs a day, you know, it might be 6 hours of work or 8 hours of work running around, maybe seeing a few houses and an hour or two each inspection. But then he has to do at least that again at home, sorting through everything and following up with the clients and all these different things. And he's using energy for that. I don't know how much. But what I'm saying is, like, his productivity will go up exponentially when he can just talk into an app at the inspection place. And then before he sits back in his car, he presses a button which sorts that. It prints out, it goes through his inspection. It prints out the inspection form. It sends it to the clients. It sends it to the agents. It chases the bill. It does all that.
But all that is compute power.
Yeah.
That compute
But he was going to
power
do the computing.
is what these data centers are trying to run.
But they're going to use that power now for a couple of seconds to do all that. It's all going to be automatic. Boom, 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 boom. And none of it's even.
Well, Sam Altman already said, like, he wishes people would stop using the word please and thank you to the AI because of how much compute power just please and thank you is.
Sure. AI is going to learn. It'll get smarter. But anyway, either way, what I'm saying, let me finish my thought, please. So the fact that phone can do that process that would normally take him hours to do when he gets home and, you know, doing further administration office work, he's still got to use lights and everything, computer, everything else when he's at home in the office, but he's got to use it for hours to do it all manually. When he can use it on his phone for a second, it might take a lot of energy to do that for a second, but I don't know if that second of energy competes with the hours of all the other devices he needs to use in his office to get the same work done. So you're going to have productivity going up and you're going to have certain usage requirements going down.
I agree, because that is productivity, but the data would say that the data centers, just because of that massive amount of growth, I mean, we're talking about 2 to 3-fold a year, is the demand for compute. And so to increase that, especially when you're talking about when we get quantum computing power involved, it's going to be so high that the difference in even the driving around, let's say he could do one that he doesn't have to drive around. It pulls a lot of the information and saves him from driving. So these are productivities, but look at the age of productivity and the compute power. So right now we use a lot of robots in our house, right? It's already crowding out many different jobs. When we put the horses to pasture, literally when we start using cars. So we have a robot that we drive around in. And then literally we have lights. I have a robot that does all the vacuuming. It runs around. My microwave is plugged into the internet and you could run it from your phone. The refrigerator runs, the dishwasher, all of these are now plugged in, talking to each other, trying to be more efficient, saying, okay, well, it's only half a load of dishes, so I'll only run a half a load and I'll only do this, right? So these are all definite more energy efficient things. Even our lights run on LEDs now. So, you know, we have seen lots of new technologies that save and energy efficient, but they are not coming at near the speed. Like the savings, if you look, the savings are like, okay, we're in Texas is a good example because we have so many people who have moved here. We produce so much power, but now because of savings, there hasn't been such a drain. But AI is totally different because its compute power demand is so high that in the US, we're going to need literally almost 4 times the amount of power just to get to a basis in productivity, which means that all these benefits that we have coming aren't going to get there because we're just not going to have the electricity. If you look at what China has done, China has actually put forward a huge effort in building electrical infrastructure much faster than the US. We do have 3 Mile Island. Bill Gates is trying to get 3 Mile Island back and going with a new type of pebble bed reactor, a little cleaner, a little smaller, but more efficient. It's our first effort since the 70s with nuclear power.
Yeah, this is
We do lots of solar and we do lots of wind here, but we are not making electricity. most of our power coal only makes up about 13% of the power overall, and it's diminishing, but natural gas makes up like 40%. And so fossil fuels still dominate. It's our leading technology right now. So you kind of now have this problem where we really don't have enough electricity, to go around to support the demand that we're saying is going to go all the way down to education in order to get this compute power.
It's energy has always been a false demand, Joe. This is part of the problem. This is part of the problem is, and energy and innovation, it will have a balance eventually, or it will get to a point where one will have to placehold until the other reaches it. But we've seen it happen in the past. And even back to your other analogy about the horses, there's still Amish, right? There'll still be people going through traditional systems and going to colleges and universities, but they're going to be Amish in 10 years. That's anybody who's in that traditional system will be looked at as an Amish or like a caveman. Like they're going to look so primitive in 10 years because there is going to be an innovation. Like you're projecting certain needs based on current demand, but current demand is then going to also force innovation. It's going to force innovation. We're going to get more stuff like LED lights. We're going to get more materials, and we're going to be able to use these new technologies to.
So by that you mean like maybe batteries. Batteries would be one
research and development. So
we don't have to make more power.
Before the electric car, this is a
power.
perfect example. Before the electric car, no one gave a crap about batteries. We've been using the same batteries that they found in a cave in Iraq thousands of years ago, right? Like, so now we're actually starting to develop. Even the rockets is a great thing. We were blasting rockets off into space 50, 60 years ago, right? And now Elon Musk is a genius. Why? Because he went back and he re-engineered the nozzle at the bottom of the tube that spits out gas. And he's a genius because he did that. No one thought about doing that in the last 50 years. No one thought, I wonder if I could make a rocket more efficient. Are you kidding me? Like, because look at the cars different in 50 years. Imagine trying to race a 50-year-old car today.
It's not rocket science.
Imagine trying to race a 50-year-old car against a car today. That's why cars have innovated, because there was a need. There was a demand there. People want to get faster. There was,
but what you're saying is like, let's develop new batteries. The technology will come. But lithium ion was made in the university system.
I'm saying there's people looking at new technologies. There's people looking at, like, we have clean technologies all the time, right? People trying to say that there's going to be the next big, whether it's ocean currents or it's the sun, energy from the sun. Elon Musk keeps saying that there's more energy from the sun in one single day that we could use on our current systems in thousands of years, right? It's just a way, how do we harness that still? And so we'll get there. That's what I'm saying. If the need for that power comes, we'll get there.
But now you're saying we need technologies. I mean, isn't that what these schools are doing? Isn't that what the government funding is doing? Is funding the smartest and brightest people to the schools to do research, to find the newest
where every innovation has come out of a college or university. I don't live in that world. I live in a world where I see so much.
Oh, you definitely live in that world.
I know. I see some of that world.
All the major technologies we're using right now are made in the U.S. by the U.S.
They were made by most of the technologies we're using were made by government
for
military research,
national complex
for military research.
Yeah, but that is the same thing. A lot of this funding is military research that's being done in a lot of these schools.
That's where the demand came from. The demand came from, security, and so.
But that's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the state literally saying, like, okay, instead of letting the market work internationally, what if I try to just fund? They're very inefficient at it, but they spend too much. But what if I fund all these research centers? And then eventually, if we get a technology, I'll jump on it. Well, we'll jump on it here. I mean, isn't that what they're trying to do with the university system? I mean, so
no, I'm saying that
wouldn't
happens
that
in
say,
universities
all right,
as well. I'm saying it doesn't.
Keep the stamp.
I'm saying you're still
Harvard.
living. It's like someone like I'm having a conversation with you as if I was an atheist and having a conversation with someone who goes to church, right? So you go to a certain church, and because that system works for you, it's hard for me to either talk to you about other churches without you getting offended about your church, or even not living with a church in general. That's just foreign to you. Like, so most people that go to church, they understand maybe joining a different church or going to a different church. And a lot of people live with...
The new pope is a mathematician, so this could be right down your alley. Like, this could be the religion of math.
But what I'm saying, so your religion is that anything that we have of value comes from from an educational institution. And I'm saying that worldview works for you, but that's not the reality for everyone, because the reality is a lot of innovation and technology has come from a lot of different places. And sometimes it's even
I
just,
mean, I like this analogy. You're basically saying that anything that comes from government funding, I'm saying God created the world.
no, yeah, well, it
I
is a good
like it.
analogy, because you are, every time I try to say something, you try to say without universities, we wouldn't have them. And I'm saying, yes, we would have them. There's other ways we would have a lot of these things you're talking about. The university system has worked. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm saying there's other.
But would we have that, or would the world have it? And that's where the difference is the U.S. does have a skin in the game in trying to make these institutions be here. Because similar to as we talked about in World War II,
Yes.
trying to get immigrants here to build it here is important. So the U.S. does want to put their finger on the scale to say, how can I artificially create an ecosystem where people want to do research to get them out of their country and to come here, create brain drains elsewhere, and to try to get smart people doing stuff here? I mean, isn't that part of national security? Isn't that part of the innovation and the wave needed for productivity to go
It
up?
should be, but it seems like America's doing the exact opposite right now. Like, I don't know. Can you feel it? Like, I feel like I want to go to Dubai, right? We should all go
Right.
to Dubai, right? Like,
Yes,
there's
but
better places
that
now.
literally is the Trump administration chasing people away. That's what I'm saying. Like that's what's broken is what they're going after. I'm so annoyed by Harvard, but I hate that Harvard. I'm like, yes, they are right. They need to stand up for this, and they're probably going to come out being even more liberal because now they are champions. Well, that's about all the time we have. You heard it here, folks. Thank you for listening to Hostile Dysfunction, where we unpack the wild, interconnected chaos shaping our world, including the population's decline and all the reasons for it. Next week, we have a great interview with Tommy Kilpatrick, where we'll be discussing a retiree who has been able to relocate into another country and save a tremendous amount on retirement. So stay tuned for that.